Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about my personal goals. Every month I sit down and film this video for you where I share all the action steps I picked for my goals for the prior month, which ones I completed and which ones I didn't, and then all the action steps that I have picked for the upcoming month. If this is your first time joining one of these, it is helpful to have some background information. I have both a full annual goals video for the entirety of 2023 and then a quarterly goals video with my quarterly focuses for just Q2 of 2023. Both of those videos explain a lot more in background about what my overarching goals are. And these videos, we get down into the nitty-gritty of what all my action steps were. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about May and which ones I did and which ones I didn't. As of the time I'm filming this video, I feel like I'm gonna end up saying this a lot, I have a handful of things, okay, maybe it's not that many, on this list that I have intentions to complete before the end of the month. So I haven't checked them off or I haven't moved them to June. Now, obviously in an ideal world, I am doing these before the end of the month. If I don't get to them, I probably won't add them to my June list. They probably will just like live on a to-do list. There's really no right or wrong here in terms of to-do list, goal action steps. There's a lot of gray area there, and I actually did a video on that topic. It's a decently old video, but I think it's still really valuable. If that mindset, like breaking up a goal step, action step versus a to-do list item is still hard for you, go back and check out that video again. For me, I like to sometimes put things on my goals list that may seem like to-do items, but I am much more accountable to my goal planner than I sometimes am to my actual planner and my to-do list, so I am better at getting them done. At this point, I've been staring at them for a month on my goal planner. So if I don't get to them, I probably will just put them in my calendar, move them to a to-do list. Let's talk about them. So the first one was to get my social security number changed, last name change started. And I haven't done that yet because we still haven't filed our 2022 taxes yet. We still owe our accountant. She asked this question and I haven't gotten back to her, so that is on me, but it hasn't been filed yet. I'm waiting for that to happen. As soon as we file our taxes, and then I will start that process. It is possible that happens by the end of the month. It's also possible it doesn't, and you'll see kind of actually how I'm handling that when we get to the June steps. The next one was to get our Roomba all set up, and I have this on my list to do literally later today. The biggest reason I have been putting this off is waiting for different furniture pieces. And I know that the Roomba will adjust, and I kept telling myself, like, just get it set up and it'll adjust when you get a new furniture piece. But every time I tried to have that conversation with myself, we would make another big purchase that we were waiting, that was outstanding. And the biggest, most recent one was our king size bed, upgrading our bed to a king bed and getting our bed moved into the guest room. Well, we had guests over the weekend, and so we were forced to get all that done, and then they were here over the weekend, and so now I'm like, okay, they are gone and it is time to get the Roomba all set up. Are there still gonna be furniture pieces that we purchased for this apartment? Absolutely. Are there still things that are gonna get moved around? I'm sure. But for now, I actually feel really good about where we're at and getting that all set up. So hopefully I will check that off later today. The next item on my list was the Week in the Life project. And this one didn't really fit into a specific goal other than I just wanted to get to it in the month of May and hold myself accountable like I talked about earlier. I have made progress on this. I haven't quite finished it. I think I had intentions of finishing it earlier in the month, and I made a lot of progress that very first weekend. The second weekend was Mother's Day, and I think I thought, well, I'll finish it that weekend. We have planned Sunday, but that's it. And I didn't get to it, and the month has been chaos since then. Again, planning to get to it by the end of this month. In my mind, this weekend, although it's June, I'm still kind of tackling it in terms of May. And there is no right or wrong. When the month changes in the middle of the week, you get to decide, right? You get to decide, am I kicking off the new month on that Monday, even though it's still the old month? Am I waiting until the new month? Am I kicking it off on the actual first, even though it's in the middle of the week? Or am I waiting until the following week? Because it was a holiday weekend and we had guests, I knew that I wasn't gonna feel prepared and ready for May, both personally and business-wise, until after this upcoming weekend. I like having a weekend to feel like I'm ready for the month. So to me, even though June starts on Thursday, it doesn't really start until next Monday. So I am planning to check some of these things off this weekend. Technically it's June. In my mind, it's May. The next one on here was to send the monthly finance summary to my husband. I did that at the very beginning of the month. I talked about that a lot more in detail in the last couple of videos. Check that one off within the first couple of days. The next item was related to the baby goal, and that was to get our registry finished. And I did not finish it, kind of like the Week in the Life. I'm really thankful that the goal planner I've created, which, by the way, I feel like I probably should say this at the beginning of the video, and I always forget. The goal planner that I've created, as of right now, it is available for free within the goal setting community. So if you join my community membership, you can get the June version. You get all of Q2 basically, but a lot of it's over at this point, for free. Starting in Q3, it is going to be for sale. Possibly by the time this video goes up, probably not. You know what I'll do for sure? By the time this video goes live, I will have a wait list. If you're interested in snagging the goal planner for Q3, when it goes on sale, I'll leave a wait list here on this video so that you'll get notified as soon as that goes on sale. Anyways, I created this for myself. And one of the things I knew I needed and would benefit me is this column that shows that I've made progress on the goal, even if I haven't completed it. So I checked that column off for Social Security because part of it was working on the tax process. I checked that off for Week in the Life, and then I checked that off for the registry because I have made progress and I've gotten most of the stuff. The things that I haven't done yet are the big ticket items, which I don't know if anyone's gonna really buy those anyway, but you know, Amazon has this awesome feature where people can group contribute to things. So things like the crib, like a rocking chair for the nursery. I feel like there was one other like big, oh, like a stroller and a car seat. Like those big ticket items that I know are gonna need more research. I haven't done those yet. So I also have that on my list to do tonight. If I get all my work things done today, it's Monday the 29th. I don't know if you care about when I'm talking about the timing. I'm hoping to like sit in bed with a cup of tea and get that finished tonight. The next action item was to get the shower invite list all ready to go, and that is done. So it's 2 months from today, which is really exciting. And then the last monthly item was to go on a friend date, and I did that and checked that off and feel good about that. So monthly items, for the most part, I feel pretty good about. Let's move in to weekly items. I'm gonna take a sip of, I'm having an afternoon coffee before we move in, because the weekly items, well, there was really only 2 weekly items. The first one was to execute on a cleaning routine. And I went on and on last month about how I was going to feel okay that I was gonna miss days on the cleaning routine because I knew I was starting too much. I was like doing way too much at the beginning, and I was like, but it's okay because I'm gonna miss days and blah, blah. I talked about that in last month's video. Now, all of that is still true. Everything I said, I still feel that way about a cleaning routine. The issue I had with the goals that I set is I didn't break them down enough, and I still made them too big. In my head, I was like, oh, that's all, like, it's not that big of a step. And then when it came time to actually do it, it felt very overwhelming. So then at some point in the month, I crossed off the word routine and I wrote the word something, just clean something. And I still didn't do it. I still didn't even like try to accomplish anything until I had to. And last week before company came, I did it all. Like I cleaned everything, not all in one go, but like in big chunks, and very clearly realized that is not how I want to tackle this apartment. So, but it's clean, and the apartment got clean before they got here. We will talk more when we get to the June steps about how I am going to tackle cleaning in the next go around. What I did for May did not work, and it is just one of those examples of trial and error sometimes is the answer with goal setting. I was just talking to a one-on-one client about this. Sometimes we can come up with the idea and we can break it down and it works. Sometimes we come up with an idea and it doesn't work, and we realize hopefully quickly that it doesn't work, and then we pivot to a different action step. Or we come up with 3 ideas and we're not quite sure which one is going to work, and instead of pro-conning or overthinking and trying to pick one, just pick one, try it, and if it doesn't work, you've got 2 more backup ideas ready to go. So didn't happen, I'm okay with it. The apartment is clean now because it had to be. And then the last weekly goal was to hit a weekly step goal. I've talked in a number of videos about the benefit of a weekly step goal as opposed to a daily step goal, especially for me with like pregnancy and days. Sometimes I have more energy and sometimes I have less energy, especially for those of us who work from home. If I don't leave the apartment for any reason, now don't get me wrong, I got a lot more steps on a regular basis just existing in this apartment than I did in our New York City apartment. But if I don't leave the apartment, my number for the day is less than, so I did 30K for May, which I based on actual numbers from April, which I talked about before. You've got to start with where you're at and not just pick a number. Like 10,000 steps a day is the number that gets thrown around a lot. So if you converted that, it would be 70,000 steps a week. Well, guess what? In April, I was averaging something in the 20s. And so if I jumped immediately to 70, I would have never hit that, even if I tried to push myself. So all I did was I took my data and my number from April, which I just got from my Apple Watch, and then I bumped it up a little bit to push myself a little bit in May. And so that came out to 30,000 steps a day, which is about like 4,300-ish per day. So on days I work from home and on days I don't leave the apartment, I don't hit that number. I don't just hit that number existing in the apartment, and that's okay. And then there's days that I push myself, I'm gonna go run an errand, I'm gonna go to the slightly further drugstore, or I'm gonna go do this to get myself a little bit more steps. And then I do more walking on the weekends. We walk to dinner, we walk to things, and so it averages out. Now, one of those weeks I was in New York for the weekend and I got way more than 30,000. Like that one I didn't even have to really try. But every other week, the goal did force me to push myself a little bit on the weekends, especially, or days that I was leaving the apartment. And that felt good. Like it felt like I was increasing my movement, especially aligned with my higher energy this trimester without like overdoing it. All right, let's move into the daily action items. I also calculated all the like little percentages for the daily items. I'm gonna go through some of them because I think it's helpful, but if you're like not a math nerd like me, you may not enjoy that part of it, but let's jump into each of them. So the first one was to do my daily read. And I talked last month about how I was jumping back into my morning routine and I was doing a good job, but I was regularly skipping a lot of steps. And not like it wasn't, I still felt good that I was doing my morning routine, but I needed a way to get those steps back in. And so I was gonna tackle them one at a time. So May, it was tackling my daily read. That was a good one to start with. I also ended up, for the most part, doing my gratitude journal as well, because it's also like a 1 to 2 minute. And I was already kind of in the vibe with my daily read that I also kind of did that one. So I felt really good about making that decision to get myself back into those steps, and you'll see which one I picked for June. The other thing I will say about that daily goal before we move on is I had it to do it every single day. And as you can see, I really didn't do it on the weekends. And so if I only count the weekdays, I did it 81% of the days, which that feels really good because ultimately that's my goal. I don't really care about the weekends. My morning routine is not a priority. If I miss those days, I miss those days. I'll read that daily read another point in my life and I'll get those days on another year. And so I'm thinking for June, I haven't yet, but I might cross off the weekend days because they're just not important to me for that particular goal and that particular routine. The same, however, is not true for the next routine. For my PM routine, I would like to do that every night because it is so simple. My PM routine, there's not a whole lot of prep for the next day. I'm not a night person normally, and so I'm not gonna push it now. And so it's literally like washing my face, doing my skincare, and brushing my teeth, and making sure Charlie has food before we go to bed. Because if her bowl gets empty overnight, she will meow in the middle of the night and wake us up. So in May, I did it 16 out of 28 days so far, and so that's about 57%. It's pretty good. It's not terrible. It's basically halfway. So I feel good about the number of times that I did it, but I'm carrying that over because I really want to make sure that I'm continuing to prioritize it. And that one is important that I focus on every day of the week, not just weekdays. And one of the reasons I like calculating the percentages, because not only is it, at least for some goals, encouraging to be like, well, 57% is still a lot. Like that's still a lot of days that you did it. But then next month, my focus can be to do it more than 57%, right? And as long as I increase that a little bit, that's improvement over the prior month. All right, the next daily item was to get back into doing the laundry every day-ish. I knew that it was not gonna be every day. That was not the goal for this particular daily item, but I wanted to mark it every day I did do it to give me that motivation, that accountability to get back into doing the laundry regularly. One of the sacrifices we had to make on this apartment, and I think I talked about this last month, is that we don't have laundry in the unit. It's in the building, it's shared among all the tenants in the building, which is really not that many. And it's on the same floor as our unit. So it's really, even though I have to go through an extra door, it is really not that far, even in comparison to our New York City apartment. And so I really just wanted to get back into the habit, into the rhythm of doing laundry in smaller chunks, 1 or 2 loads at a time. There are 2 washers and 2 dryers. So some days I was doing 2, which is another reason why the number is lower, but at least I was doing it more than before. Up until it was a goal on my planner, I was stocking up and I was waiting until I had 4 or 5 loads, and then it just felt like a lot. It felt overwhelming, and then I didn't want to do any of it, right? So getting back into it, I did it 8 times so far this month, and you know what? if I got myself back into it. It was the mental aspect of it, and I feel really good about it. I also replaced our laundry baskets because Sam's was falling apart, and mine was small because it was sized to fit above our washer and dryer in New York. And I was like, we need new, sturdy, and large laundry baskets. So I replaced those, and that also helped with this goal. All right, next daily action item was water. And I started focusing on this back in April. I may have actually even, did I have it in March? I don't remember at this point. I definitely had it in April, and then I increased the number in May. And I hit my goal 22 out of 28 days, which is almost 80%. And that feels really good. I feel really good about where I'm at with my water. I showed on Instagram, one of the things I'm doing right now is using little stickers to track, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, to track how many cups I've had. So in the morning, I will put these little heart stickers, they're just from like a Michael sticker book, on my water bottle. And then as I finish it, I'll pull it off. Because my brain cannot remember how many times I have filled it up. And then if we like go out to eat or we're out and about and I know I didn't have 4 of this exact cup, which is my goal, I just will guess, like, how did I feel? If we went out to dinner or eat, like, to a meal, I probably drank a lot of water, because if somebody is constantly filling up my water, I'm drinking it a lot, especially because I'm likely not drinking another drink at the same time right now. So I'm drinking a lot of the water. So I pretty much always gave it to myself. But even when we're out and about, like we went to the zoo when our friends were here, and I packed a bottle of water and I finished that and then filled it up again and finished that on the walk home. So I felt like, even though again, I didn't have 4 of these, I felt like I hit my goal that day. I am not carrying this one over into June. I'm gonna keep with the sticker thing. I just don't feel like I need to have the check mark to encourage me to do it every day. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, the next daily action item was to close my Apple Watch rings. And once again, in last month's video, I talked in a lot more detail about what the different rings are, and that I took all my data from April, I averaged it out, and I rounded it up slightly. Overall, this is where we might get a little nerdy with the numbers. Overall, I hit 61% of days where I closed all 3. And honestly, I feel great about that. That was way more than the month of April, but also my goals for April were ridiculous compared to my physical abilities. But 61% for that goal feels so good. But on top of that, I tracked all of the numbers. All I did was I printed off a blank calendar, like from calendars.com, and I tracked all of my numbers. Again, math major, I love numbers, I'm a numbers nerd. And so I hit 61% of days where I hit all 3. If I break it down, like there's 3 goals a day, right, for 28 days, I hit those 77% of the time, which that feels even better. So I am really excited about this goal. I feel like it really did what I wanted it to do, which was just encourage me to be more like in touch with the fact that I wanted to prioritize my health and my movement, especially as my energy was coming back. So I am definitely carrying this one over into June. And all I did was take my average numbers from May, and the same thing I did was I rounded them up slightly. And so they are higher than they were in May. All of them, all 3 of them went up. But I feel good about where I'm at, and that I'm gonna be able to keep it there. That might not be true forever. I might not be increasing it for forever. In fact, like I know the stand goal, I am back now to where I was before, like my pre-pregnancy stand goal. I'm not gonna increase that. Like even if my average is higher this month, I'm not going to increase that. And then frankly, as we get into the 3rd trimester, I may even lower them. But for now, I feel good about that goal in May, and then good about the increased numbers. I actually already changed them on my watch for June. All right, and then the Instagram limit. Okay, this is one of those goals, kind of like the week in the life, that didn't really exactly fit into my goals, but I knew it was getting out of hand, and I knew I needed to do something about it. So I did the same thing as I did with my rings. I took my April numbers and I just took the average and I set that as my goal. And overall, it looks like I did a pretty good job. But the truth is that a lot of those days were weekend days, and I didn't even come close to the limit on the weekend days. And then on the weekdays, I either hit it, and I got the check mark because I hit it and then I cut myself off, and I like had that self-control to go the rest of the day without checking Instagram, or I didn't hit it and I went way over, like way over the limit. So I'm glad I did this. I learned a lot. Even though it looks on paper, like I feel really good about the month, I don't feel good about the amount of time I spent on Instagram. And so we are not only tackling that a little bit differently, but adding in another component we'll talk about when we get to June. Okay, that was a lot. Wow, We had a lot of steps in May, but I did not realize I was gonna talk that long about them. Let's move into June. Hopefully I won't be quite as long-winded talking about June. I do feel like it takes me more to talk about the reflection sometimes than the explanation or like the setup, but we'll see. So moving into June, the first one-time step is the name change process. And the reason I didn't get as specific is kind of like I talked about, I might get to doing that social security step by the end of the month, or I might not. So instead of getting specific, all I wrote was name change progress, like make progress on this goal in some way, shape, or form. That is what I wrote for the month of June. Normally I like to be more specific about my action steps, but given where I'm at with this goal and some timing things that are up in the air that are not in my control, this is what made the most sense for right now. The next one-time step was to go on one friend date, which we have tentatively scheduled, but I feel good that I'm gonna get to it by the end of the month. Feeling good about the quarterly goal to do one a month at this point. The next two one-time steps are both related to the baby goal, and the first one is to book classes, which I am very excited about. Our hospital offers a ton of different classes that we wanna take. We wanna take, like, one is just like a generic caring for a newborn class. There's like a labor and delivery class. Not my whole family, but like my mom, my stepdad, and maybe some of my other siblings are gonna do a newborn CPR, newborn infant CPR class. And they only do them like 1 month out. So right now on their website, they only have the June. They have some early July dates, but we have a lot of stuff going on early July. So we're aiming for either late July or early August, and those dates are not up yet. So I have it on my goals. As soon as those dates are available, it's like I want to get those booked, and I'm actually really excited about those. And then the other baby related goal is to finalize outfits for all of those things that we have going on in July. So in July, we are going on a baby moon, and finalize outfits is not really a thing for that, minus the fact that I need to buy some swimsuits. Then we're gonna do maternity photos and then the baby shower. All of that is in July. And so in June, my goal is to finalize all the outfits, order things, etc. for those events. And then the last one-time step is just the monthly financial summary. I almost didn't include it because I feel like, I've only done it once, but at this point it does feel like it's just gonna happen as soon as we've wrapped up the month. Like my husband's expecting it, I'm excited to send it. I think it's helpful for us and it facilitates conversations. But I decided to go ahead and include it this month. We'll see if I keep carrying it over to future months. Moving into weekly action items. So the first one is my step goal. So I am carrying that over, but I have increased it to 35,000. Now I did average, I can't even remember now what the number was that we averaged. That was literally my exact average in May was 5,000 a day. Like it was like almost weirdly to the step. It was like maybe 5,001 was my average over the entire month of May. Now again, I feel like those days in New York kind of were a little bit bumped up that average just a little bit. And because it was pretty close to a round number, I didn't feel the need to round it up. So I set my weekly step goal of 35,000 steps for the week. The next weekly goal is to focus on workouts. Now, I did start them in May. I feel like I definitely, like if there's a reason that some things on my goals list, like the cleaning routine didn't happen, it was likely because there were a couple of other things. I try to make sure that I incorporate all of my personal goals on this piece of paper so that I'm not like hiding. I'm being very transparent about what I am and am not doing. Now, obviously I've explained this in the past, but my work goals are not on this piece of paper anymore. And so that can sometimes impact my personal goals getting done. So can having company or going on trips and traveling throughout months. Obviously now, so can pregnancy. Now, last month I did decide that I wanted to kind of set a goal to work out. All I did was I knew I wanted to get back into, or not even back in, I wanted to start trying my friend Josina's prenatal workouts. And so I printed out the little calendar that she created, and I love a program, and I started incorporating that into my routine. That supported the fact that closing my Apple Watch rings was one of my goals, and that was on my goal planner. But I didn't put working out anywhere on my goal planner. Now, sometimes I still did it because I was still motivated and excited and I had that extra printout, and then sometimes I didn't and I just like mentally skipped. And then sometimes I would skip. I would do the whole, well, I didn't start it on Monday, so I'm like not gonna worry about the rest of this week kind of mentality. And so what I wanted to go ahead and do this month was incorporate it into my goal planner to encourage me to do it. Now, her program has 3 major workouts each week. There's 2 strengths and 1 cardio, prenatal cardio. And so my goal is to do each of them. My ideal schedule that I've planned out is one Monday, one Tuesday, and one Thursday. That's based on my work schedule and all the other things that we have going on. I didn't write that on here. I only wrote workout 1, workout 2, workout 3. That way, if I don't do something on Monday, I can make up for it later in the week and still get my check mark. But as always, I like having them separated. That way, if I do 1 or 2, but not the 3rd, I get credit for, like I get the check mark for the ones that I do complete. So I'm glad that I'm incorporating that back in. It is not brand new because I started it back in May, even though I didn't totally hold myself accountable, and I'm excited to focus on it in June. All right, moving into the daily. A lot of these are carryover in some way, shape, or form from May. So the first one is closing my rings. Like I said, my average numbers for May were higher than the goals, which is the goal. That was exciting to see that come out. So I just took those numbers and rounded them to the nearest like pretty number and made those my Apple Watch rings goals. All right, let's talk about the Instagram limit. So I should have known this. I don't like to use the word should, but I've set this goal before. And let me be honest, when I looked at the numbers for April, I didn't see this as clearly as it happened in May, which is that my weekday numbers are different than my weekend numbers. Now, that makes sense because partially I'm using Instagram for work during the weekday. It's always a part of my communication routine. I'm responding to DMs, I'm responding to comments. Part of it is on the weekend, I'm not even doing as much scrolling because I'm doing things. I'm spending time with friends and family. I'm doing activities, so I'm not just like scrolling on my phone as a break. Like during the weekdays when I take a 5-minute break from work, I find myself scrolling Instagram. I don't do that as often on the weekends. So those numbers, but in April, they weren't that different. They really weren't. And so I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna set one goal for May. Well, like I said, that's not how it happened in May. In May, I always like didn't hit the limit on weekend days, and I was going either hitting it or going way over it on weekdays. So step 1 was setting 2 different goals. So I have a different weekday goal, which is actually a little bit higher in June than it was in May because my average was a little bit higher, and I'm not trying to like set myself up for failure. So it's still lower than the average, but it's higher than what the overall goal was in May. If you're following on the months at this point, I feel like I've said the wrong month probably 400 times. My editor is usually pretty good about catching it, and she'll pop up like what she knows I meant to say. I'm sure I messed it up. Anyways, my weekday goal is slightly higher, but it's just Monday through Friday. And then my weekend goal is lower than what it was before and different than the weekday goal. So that is how I'm tackling Instagram. Now, the other thing that I think happened, and I didn't go back and compare numbers, so I don't know this for sure, but I felt like it was happening, is that on days, weekdays especially, that I would hit the Instagram limit, I was using Facebook more as a scroller, as just like a time filler in place of Instagram. And I don't feel like I necessarily need a Facebook limit per se, because I don't feel like I use Facebook in the same way, and I don't think Facebook has the same necessarily negative impact to my mental health that Instagram can have sometimes, depending on what pops up on my feed. But I don't want Facebook to become a crutch for Instagram. So I also set a Facebook limit based on the numbers from April, or not April, May. The numbers from May, I set a Facebook limit for June. So hopefully that won't be an issue, and I don't feel like this one is like I won't hit it as often. But again, I felt like I was using it as a replacement in May for Instagram, and so I'm trying to avoid that at the beginning by making a limit for it in June. Okay, the next 3 daily items are all routine-based. So the first one is related to my morning routine, and the step that I'm adding back in is reading in the morning because I am behind on my pregnancy books. And so the act of reading nonfiction, and it kind of works out with my laundry goal because I have whatever step in my routine it is that I put the laundry in, and then there's like a couple steps in there, right? My daily read, my gratitude, I do a couple of work things, and then the space until the laundry is done is reading. And again, right now I have been skipping it, and then the next step is workout, which sometimes I've also been skipping. I definitely need to do an updated morning routine video maybe in like a month or 2. So I'm not setting a goal on the amount of time is what I'm trying to say. The amount of time will depend on how long the other steps take, and basically until the laundry is done. In the app, I have it set for 10 minutes. So if I'm not doing a load of laundry, I'll just do it for 10 minutes. If I am doing a load, it could be more or less depending on where I'm at in my routine. But that is this morning routine step I am adding back in June. The next one is my PM routine. Nothing changing here. Again, just trying to beat the number I did in May. And then the last daily item is to clean. So kind of like I talked about in May, where I had just changed it to clean something, that is how I'm gonna tackle the apartment and cleaning, just to see how it goes in June. And I made it a daily item because I think that I might want to or need to clean on the weekends sometimes. And I felt like I got into a rhythm or routine at some point in our old apartment where I didn't have to do that, and I could save my weekends. But I also was working a lot more weekends back when we lived in New York. I have worked a lot, and you can tell that by like my community call schedule, to not have to work on the weekends. And because I like the flexibility of being able to do things with my family. I mean, there's a million and one reasons why I made that decision. That said, I can clean or do household things, and so use energy for those activities, for that activity on the weekends. And so I made it a daily goal, and so every time, I just realized while looking at this that I forgot to talk about something related in the weekly section, and that the dates, the numbers are wrong on this, and I know why. I'll get to that. I'll tell you, you may have already caught it and like called me out on it, but if you haven't, I'll explain why in just a second. Let me finish talking about cleaning first. So anyways, I made it a daily goal. Is my goal to clean something every single day? No, not even a little bit. But my goal is when I have the energy and or time, I want to clean something, and I want to get myself to get a check mark for doing so. What I'm going to clean, do you ask? Well, I made myself a separate list for this, and I don't think I'm gonna share this with you because it kind of like, some of it is personal to our apartment and some of it says specific things about our apartment that I don't necessarily want to share. But what I did was across, or like down the bottom, I have all of the different like literal breakdowns of all the things to clean. So instead of having, so it actually is sorted out by room, and instead of having, like, I had one of the cleaning steps on one of the days was to do all of the floors. There's a lot of floors in this apartment, especially compared to any of my prior apartments. So instead of having floors be their own thing, floors is under each individual room. So is dust, so is mirrors, so is like cleaning the bathrooms, etc. So I have it all literally broken down. And then there's just boxes that go across. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write the date that I do them. So far I went ahead and wrote all the dates. Basically it was Thursday or Friday of last week that I did it. And I didn't even do all of these things. I did the things that had to get done before the guests got here. And then when I am like, okay, I'm gonna clean something, I'm gonna look at what has the latest like lack of date and be like, oh, I haven't dusted the shelves. Like I didn't do that before the guests came. So that could be the thing that I clean that day. And I'm gonna just, I'm tracking it again just to be able to decide what I'm going to do next. We'll see how it goes. It may, like, it still may not work for me. And I think I said this in last month's video anyways, and then the baby's gonna come and I'm gonna change it all anyway. So like, it does, I just need to get something where I'm not frantically trying to clean before somebody shows up at our apartment. Okay, going back really quickly to the weekly. So normally when the week falls in the middle of the month, I make a decision if it's gonna be with like the prior month or the next month. And I already talked in this video about how in my mind, June doesn't start until next week. However, I wanted to start the workout and like prioritize that starting this week. So that is why I changed, or I added in the week of May 29th to my weekly section, because I wanted to, because of how my trimesters lined up. I wanted to get in the 4-week program before the end of my second trimester, and that meant I really needed to start focusing on it this week. So when I created the June page for the community, I didn't include the week of May 29th. But when I was working on my goals, I was like, I do want the week of May 29th so that I can focus on my workouts that week. When I did that, I went and used the May version because the May had 5 weeks and I didn't update the numbers at the bottom, which means I'm going to have to fix that, redo this whole page, which is fine. It is what it is. That's the beauty of being able to print this out myself, and then I can fix it and change it. But I just realized that while I was talking to you. Okay, I know this video is long and I've had that. We need to be done with it. I would love for you to share down in the comments what is one June action step for your goals that you are very excited about. I would love to hear about it in the comments, and we're gonna end this video here. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, in an ideal world, I didn't have, why can't I say this sentence? That was a weird sentence. Hang on, let me try that again.